Okay, well, my name is Zaahir Essa, and I'm a mechanical engineer by profession. Got a wife, kids, but my main passion is racing, motorsport, and sim racing. I've been sim racing a hell of a long time, and back in high school, I don't have any motorsport background, like no racing background. My family, there's no racing background at all. I grew up in Durban, residing in Johannesburg for now. But in Durban, there's no tracks nearby, anything like that. So I wasn't exposed to racing at all. It's just in high school, there was this New Age Gaming magazine. They come with a CD with demo of games. And I picked up this thing on Monaco Grand Prix. And I thought, hey, this is pretty fun. And ever since that, and a link to Formula One, where I'm watching Formula One and just wowed by Michael Schumacher and Ferrari and that Italian passion. And ever since then, I was just completely hooked. I would say a telltale sign was like, even on Need for Speed games, I would be like trying to adjust my line and the braking points. My friends would be looking at me like, what's going on here? What's wrong with this guy? From there, I think, okay, look, things are a little bit serious here. And I had a knack for being quicker than other guys and being quick. And I think I was just naturally, I'm a competitive individual. So racing, I think cars is all about the speed and the adrenaline and things like that. But if you break it down, I promise you, once you start racing and the visor goes down, all of that disappears, and it's just about you beating the next guy, and it's just the absolute fuel. Just that is it, the competitive nature, and that's what's been fueling me this whole time for a good 20 years. I started out on PC. I never had a console, so a lot of these games were just on keyboard and a single player at that time. And I was just hooked on Formula One. So my background is just, I was hell-bent on Formula One single-seaters. I had Ferrari pictures, F1 cars up on the wall, and I was just playing F1 games. That was just me. And it was just on keyboard, and then obviously as things came out, like steering wheels and controllers like that, I started getting those. And they weren't very advanced, it was just whatever you could get. And made of plastic, steering wheel was just like a spring inside them in terms of force feedback, weren't even force feedback at the time. And just building up from there. And then obviously with technology and the internet, I really sound like a dinosaur, but it's like as multiplayer events started coming into the game, different games started coming out and more simulator focused. It's just racing against other people. It was just next level. It was just groundbreaking. And for me back then, there wasn't much of a local scene, like South African scene. So I was just racing Europeans, and a lot of them were European racing drivers, up and coming racing drivers. So I had a very good benchmark from there, from very early on. So I was just chasing these guys constantly. And I think that's what elevated my level and like maybe professionalism, or I wanted to be on that sort of level all the time. And I think that gave me the skills and drive that I needed to actually put in the practice, put in the time, and actually focused on getting to that sort of thing, because I actually wanted to drive in real life. So my simulator experience is more toned to fully focused on how do I use this to actually get into real life. So I was sim racing for probably maybe 7 years, or I would say professionally at like a really high level for 4 or 5 years. Till then, and it was just, I was trying to get into some sort of single-seater, like, I don't want to say I wanted to be a Formula One driver, it's like, I have dreams and aspirations, but single-seaters was my thing. So the cheapest single-seater experience I could get in this country was Formula V. So they actually make it out of, it's a Golf Chico engine and Beetle parts and things like that, but it is wild. It's really, you get to experience all the energy that you get from a single seater at like maybe a tenth of the cost. So that was ideal for me because I don't have the money to actually put into it. And I was lucky enough to get sponsors at the time to cover a lot of what I needed to have covered. And it was a great experience. It's probably the greatest experience of my life, real life racing. I mean, this is my life. So for me to have experienced that, I count myself so lucky, because maybe, such a small percentage of the population actually get to experience what it is to actually race. Not only to drive a competitive car, but racing is just another level in terms of your mindset and the whole outside world gets almost like shut out completely when it's time to race, and nothing else matters for those, whatever, how long the race is, 15, 20 minutes, and it's a proper unique experience. So I'm lucky to have, I'm privileged to have experienced that. I had to adjust a lot. So sim racing was really good. It is such a good tool, people don't realize, in terms of your mental preparation. It really translates 99% of the stuff that you learn on sim racing will translate to real life in terms of mentality. So a lot of the stuff I had to adjust to was obviously the physical G-forces and the fear of actually crashing into a wall and dying. That's part of it as well. But at the same time, you take a lot of the stuff. It's like the car handling, the car control for one, being able to race with other people, the different racing lines, how to adapt like tire strategy, the car balance, the car setup work. There's just so much you can actually take to real life racing. And I found I took a lot to that, and I found real life races were even another level in competition above what you experience in sim racing. And I've never dug so deep to chase these guys, to find the extra time, lap time. And whatever I found in real life racing, I took to sims in the same way. So they kind of just fed each other. And as I said, back in the student days, I couldn't afford to pay for my own racing. So sim racing for me was just a tool I recognized all the things I need to polish on to take to real life racing. So for me, the hardware and the PC and the equipment wasn't a big deal. Like you can be, if someone is looking to start out, you don't actually need high-end equipment to start out. I know there's a lot available here, really expensive stuff. But for me now that I do have that, I actually used a lot. I've been lucky enough to be, in the past couple of years, to be involved in competitions where I did win prize money from these competitions, and I use that to actually upgrade my rig. So it's more for fun that you get to experience the more expensive stuff, but I promise you with the basic level gear, you can actually be right at the top level. I mean, I used the Logitech G25 for about 10 years, and it's only about last year I started upgrading my stuff to actually enjoy the sim racing part of it, because I realize now that sim racing is not only a tool to get into real life racing, it's actually its own entity. I mean, it's its own esport. People take it very seriously, and it is utterly professional. And some guys involved in sim racing actually have no desire to go to real life racing, which is a bit weird for me because that's a total different mind shift. But I can understand that now because it's such an involved sport, and it really is a full-time job if you really take it to that sort of level. And yeah, so anything in between, from starting off with the basic level gear to absolutely high-end gear that can cost 50 to 100,000 rand. You can actually buy a car with this sort of money, but that's what we're talking about in sim racing. Sim racing has become its own entity now. It really is grown to a level where you can actually just do sim racing, and there's just so much involvement. There's so many competitions out there. And especially on the European side, people are realizing that. On that side, real life manufacturers are realizing that people are being paid salaries to drive on the sims. So there's so much opportunity out there. And at the same time, it's like, I do want to focus on sim racing on that side of thing, because being at that competitive level is just it takes so much involvement and so much dedicated time. And I enjoy that, and I enjoy that part of it. So for me, it's kind of now becoming detached from real life racing. So even though I still maybe one day want to get back to real life racing, and maybe sim racing will lead to that, or some aspects of it, for me, there's just so much potential in the sim racing side that it looks so encouraging, so exciting, that I am looking to some sort of future with the sim racing side, just on that sort of competitive level that it is actually reaching. So currently, locally involved in the ATK Pro Series for 2022. I won the first race, which was fantastic because the level of talent is really high, the level of commitment and the hours you put in, it is professional the way you need to go about this. And the difference this year is that they have allowed international entrants. So now not only do you get local talent coming in, but internationally you've got quite high profile drivers coming in. So for me, to win the first race it was fantastic. It is really a good achievement, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the season. Obviously, adopting the Cars That Goes brand and racing under them is just, it's going to be a fantastic opportunity. So it gives me more of a drive to compete against these guys, to compete at that level. And ATK itself, as I said, it's a great professional platform that they've set, and they've treated it accordingly. I think it's such a good platform for maybe even other brands to get involved. It's been a fantastic experience so far, and I'm just really looking forward to the rest of the season.
Cars.co.za